Tourism in Bhutan is highly focused on culture. Hence, how do you think that wildlife and nature-based tourism is highly untapped in Bhutan?
If you look at the tourism arrival status, the report our Department of Tourism comes out with, we see that about 90% of tourist arrival is purely for culture. And even if you look at all our tourism websites, most of their offering is on culture immersion, and very few on, I would say, around 10% of the tourism industry actually taps onto the rich biodiversity and the pristine nature that we have.
So how can we leverage on that and use it as a tool for conservation?
So if you look around, Bhutan is known as an environmental conservation champion. So using that, the rich biodiversity that we have and the pristine environment that we have, we can actually start capitalizing on our rich biodiversity, and then we can design programs that is based around nature and our wildlife. Like elsewhere, globally, around $350 billion is contributed to the global GDP by wildlife tourism, and about $600 billion by nature tourism. So that way, Bhutan being known globally as an environmental champion, and we having close to 70% of our country under forest cover, and with 52% of our country managed under the protected area system where conservation happens, we feel that we have a huge potential in terms of tapping this for tourism industry, whereby we invite tourists to visit Bhutan purely for nature and for wildlife viewing. At the moment, I would say wildlife viewing is purely onto few species like birds, bird watching, and then of late we have initiated recreational fishing. So these are few wildlife products in the market that we have been able to promote. Beyond that, we have not been able to capitalize on our rich nature that we have.
Can this wildlife and nature-based tourism in fact be an answer to wildlife conflicts, in fact to improve livelihoods in rural communities where they are facing the brunt of human-wildlife conflicts?
I wouldn't say an answer as such, but this will definitely help uplift our community, rural communities' livelihood. Our communities rural settlements. So thereby our wildlife causes damage to livestock, our wildlife causes damage to their crops. So we feel that at the moment wildlife is seen as a threat to communities' livelihood. We have this opportunity where we can reverse this.
What may be the potential negative impacts of unregulated wildlife and nature-based tourism in the country?
While we say tourism is an opportunity, if unregulated, it can bring in a lot of negative environmental impacts into our protected areas. If we initiate a tourism program in our protected areas and leave it unregulated, not considering the carrying capacity of that particular area, it would bring destruction of our wildlife habitat. It would bring disturbance to the wildlife. Their behavior would change. Then they would become more and more used to human presence. That could also be a negative implication to our communities, because wildlife wouldn't fear humans then. When wildlife doesn't fear humans, then there are chances of increasing human-wildlife conflict incidences.
While harnessing the benefit, how do we strike the balance, or what is the way forward?
We as a technical department, we should be the one determining the carrying capacity in the first place. How much of a tourist can we allow in a particular place? And when we initiate ecotourism, under which wildlife and nature-based tourism comes in, ecotourism, we should invite the tourists who are responsible, who cares for nature, who cares for wildlife, who already has a sense of certain responsibility of environmental conservation in their mind. So that way, I think right from the start, if we get this right, mass tourism doesn't happen, unregulated tourism doesn't happen, and this doesn't negatively impact onto our environment that we see, which is a natural capital.